Hello, welcome back to the Living Process. My name is Greg Madison, and in this episode, my guest is Astrid Schillings. I've known Astrid for quite a while now, and she has a very rich background in meditative practices as well as in the focusing world. In this episode, we talk a little bit about her approach to focusing, which she calls focusing with the whole body, which has some similarities to whole body focusing and to other practices that she has participated in during her life. And she works as a psychotherapist. She works quite a bit with trauma. And we don't talk a lot about that in this episode, but we do talk a little bit more in terms of the depth of where the experiential and the philosophical kind of meet, and the possibility of focusing on experience itself or the experience of living. We talk a little bit about stop process and structure bound process, and also some of the time that Astrid spent with Jean. Yeah, very lively, engaged conversation, which I really enjoyed. So I hope you enjoy it as well. Episode 42 with Astrid Schillings. So, welcome back to the Living Process, and I'm very happy to say my guest this time is Astrid Schillings. Welcome.
Thank you, Greg, for having me.
Yeah, really nice to have you. So, I want to start with what I normally start with, which is how did you I'm curious because I think you have a whole background, maybe even before focusing, that I don't want to skip over. But how did you get into focusing?
I was at Bonn University and I was in the branch of clinical psychology. And there they taught, at that time, they taught person-centered method under the, methods of treatment, they called it.
Mhm.
And so I was in training for person-centered psychotherapy.
Ah,
And and they had a paper nobody wanted to have because it was in English, The Theory of Personality Change.
aha.
And that blew me. I read it and I thought, wow, all we need to know is in there as psychotherapists. And I translated it for myself. I made this paper for my fellow students, but I lived in it. If you could read, see the little book that was where it was in, it's all colored with marks, and it was just like a revelation at the time. And I hadn't been aware of any of Jenlin's papers, or, it was totally new, fresh.
Hmm.
That was around 81, 82. And so I want to mention a few things because they might be important later as well. What I found in there was the reformulation of the unconscious,
Mhm.
which I thought, oh my God, we talk about repression here. And then he said, yeah, it's a stop process. It's a frozen hole. Either it happens or it doesn't happen. So don't try to put anything in there as if there are little things waiting for you. But just keep attending to your experiencing as far as it's functioning.
Mhm.
And that's the edge of awareness. And there it's meeting person-centered as well. Because Carl Rogers had tried to talk about process. He talked about the fully functioning person, and that describes the existential life. And I know that a lot of existential people think, oh, Carl Rogers, he's not really existentialist, but he said, everybody who comes to therapy has really an existential question if you dig deep enough. But it took Gendlin as a philosopher to really explore the depth of what that really means. And this theory of personality opened a door for me. And as I said to people in Hungary, it bit me. It never let go of me. I tried to turn away at times, but I couldn't. And that was so alive. And I think it's still one of the most brilliant papers
Yeah,
for psychotherapists.
yeah.
And yeah, so that was the start. And I was tr trying to find a teacher, and that was not, there was no internet. And it was interesting. I was studying this person-centered method. I loved the non-directedness about it, but nobody knew how to do focusing at the time.
Mhm.
It was like I really had to go and look for something. And there was a guy near Cologne, near Bonn, Günther Kretzer, who had met Gendlin, and he had a little institute there. And that's where I took my first courses. So it was quite local, and I was lucky.
Mm.
And and then I needed to explore more. And I went to southern Germany to the Duff people,
Mhm.
and they had a style which you will understand in a minute. For me was not limiting, but inhibiting my temperament. It was all very quiet. You lie down or you
Mm.
sit in a chair, you only close your eyes, and it's all very slow and a little solemn, maybe.
Mhm.
But I don't mean that in a criticizing way. It was a very fruitful style for very, very many people. So I really, I don't want to take any of that away. Just for me, it was a little difficult. And Johannes Wiltschko, Friedhelm Köhne, and maybe already Klaus Renner, I don't know, but he was definitely part of this.
Mhm.
Uh, they invited Gendlin. And I was almost at the verge of, do I really want to be a psychotherapist? If it's only saying back, if it's only accommodating space for that process and totally, better not move too much and,
Mm. Yeah.
almost like a psychoanalyst, but of course not. It is person to person with client-centered. I loved that. But it was so, I felt like I have to cut out things who I am.
Mhm. Inhibiting in some way.
Inhibited, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, inhibiting.
Yeah.
And then I saw Gene work, and he is not inhibited. He looks at you and does focusing.
Mhm.
He says, oh, can you say it in a different way? I didn't quite get it. And he was so relational.
Mhm.
Of course, person-centered is relational, of course, but in somewhat a different way. And although Gene is very introvert, he has a temperament
Mhm.
and humor,
Yeah.
which he puts into this thing called
Mhm.
therapy.
Mhm.
And when I saw him, I knew I can stay a therapist.
Mm. Yeah.
This guy has character.
Mhm. There's a naturalness that's allowed.
At the naturalness, there was a flow,
Mhm.
and I wanted to connect to that. And that got me to travel over the ocean a lot.
Okay, that's interesting. I was wondering because on the one hand, you had the gift of being in Germany where there was a little pocket developing, one of the only places where it was happening, and Gendlin
Yeah,
was participating in that.
yeah.
But there was something about the style of those trainings that didn't quite fit you as a person.
That's right.
So you went over to America.
Right. And um, I have an Anglo-Saxon cultural bias in me, so that
Yeah.
wasn't, so strange for me.
Yeah.
And there was this other thing that, of course, the native tongue of Jean was German,
Hmm.
and my grandmother is Viennese. So
Hmm.
we had those two kind of ways of communicating and joking
Hmm.
that the bilingual situation would provide. So that was, but that learning in Chicago was a major thing for me, and
Hmm.
it was with also with Mary McGuire,
Yeah.
who took care of my inner critic. I have a vast inner critic, and I was so nervous. I still have nervousness. I have nervousness now, but it was at that time, it was like I was dumbfolded. I sat there, I couldn't say a word.
Mm.
And then Mary McGuire said to me, just place your inner critic on my lap and just talk. I felt I felt so understood.
Yeah.
And that was liberating.
Yeah.
And then there was Janet Klein,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
she became my therapist later.
Okay.
And I started the interactive with her, and later we exchanged. So I was very blessed at the time that these people were simply there.
Yeah.
I didn't, I didn't know how important that was going to be. I was glad they were there.
Yeah. They were my first two people as well, Mary and Janet. And they had this lovely, between the two of them, this lovely combination of sort of a kind of rigor and a kind of warmth.
And very supportive.
Hmm.
When they noticed, it was in you, and but you were motivated and wanted this, they would go out
Hmm.
of the way to support you.
Hmm.
And I won't forget that. That was very important to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so, but already then, the first start towards focusing with more of than language, but the whole body started because once my inner critic was safe on the lap of Mary, I did what I always tend to do. I talk with my hands a lot. Then I talked to this great Jean Genlin, and I suddenly was very embarrassed that my hands were doing all this, and I felt so unacademic. And academics don't talk with their hands all the time. And he noticed I stopped myself, and he picked that up,
Mm.
and he said, because I was starting to interrupt myself in speaking as well. So he said, well, what about listening into your hands? They know something. And he made the movement.
Hmm.
He knows something.
Hmm.
And what about going back there? And I went back into my hands, and he was with me, and I could remember what I was going to say. And that was a key moment,
Yeah.
which I took with me. And being young then, I wanted to explore dance and movement, and I did that authentic movement with Zoe Austreich and Janet Adler. And I did the Feldenkrais training, became a practitioner.
Hmm.
I taught Qigong and later somatic experiencing. But what do they have in common? And that is all these people, and especially the Gindler I have to talk about maybe, they all were looking for the self-propelled process.
Hmm.
How does it want to live?
Hmm. Yeah.
And there were just different layers of that question.
So quite early on, it sounds like you, at least implicitly, were kind of on the lookout for a somewhat more expressive kind of focusing, more inclusive of your whole body.
I would say more inclusive because it doesn't necessarily mean expressive.
Okay, yeah.
And that is the other thing. And of course, there was all this meditative
Hmm.
side in me as well,
Yeah.
which was very in the relationship with Jean that mattered a lot because I really was looking for meaning, you know. So for me, that's I think what brought me to psychology. But uh, I had the sense that it goes through the body. So there's Zen meditation, and there were similar issues around the body as they were in these very eyes closed focusing. It was like as if something is missing in terms of a certain aliveness, which is part of the human existence.
Yeah.
And I felt a little desperate at the time. I needed to find ways of combining it, putting it together.
Mm.
And only later I was starting with Jean's philosophy and understanding his understanding of the body as, you know, expanded understanding of the body. It's like so when he talks about body, he always means this deep round of body environment process. And the body never was outside environment.
Mhm.
And that again, that shifted something. So whole body doesn't only mean expressive. It can, and that's what I have this bodying process language for. But whole body means, well, how is this
Mhm.
interacting environments bodying? And that's where the term bodying comes from. When I talk to people about whole body focusing, I say bodying, the bodying person, and the bodying person is not that just this
Yeah.
little person sitting here, but it's an interconnected way of being.
So
And
can I just say that back to you because I think I've got what you're sort of distinction you're making. It's not just about expressiveness, though it can include that.
yeah,
But the more fundamental thing you're saying, if I've got you, is it's about body environment interaction. So when you're talking about bodying, it's a more expansive or more inclusive version of what a person is or what the body is.
right,
The body and the environment are not two different locations.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this one sentence, like the body sensed from inside is a sensing of the environment. I mean, that is,
Hmm. Hmm.
it just says it. So when I talk about bodying, people say, "Do you say that in English, Körpern?" I said, "No, the word bodying doesn't exist in English either." But I want us to stumble so we can explore what does all this mean?
Yeah. But I'm wondering if you could also say, I know that Gene used to say, so it makes sense to me as soon as you say it, the body sensed from the inside. But you could potentially also say, if I understand you, the world sensed from the inside.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Actually, for supervision, I worked out a model where this information from TCP, the stop process, what is pathology. All pathology is a kind of stop process.
Mhm.
That was one of the things Jean said. I don't even know where. I heard it several times. And so I try to put it into ways so people could actually work with it. Like, so we do the training focusing with the whole body, including the classical focusing, actually, which I love. And then it goes further for people who work with other people or self-exploration. And that is, if there's a strange environment, is there's a strange behavior in me or in a client or patient, sensing into in what kind of environment would this behavior or this thing, feeling make sense?
Yeah, good question.
And that opens a whole different
Mhm, mhm,
way of looking.
mhm.
And so that for me is focusing with the whole body.
Yes,
And there are different environments.
yeah.
There's the family, there's the ecological catastrophe, there's a political environment there. And so, so for me, it's working with all these different
Mhm,
colors that you need for a fruitful carrying forward, which I then call sometimes bodying forward, or we say instead of saying back, I say bodying back because I may pick up a gesture,
mhm,
but I want to get away from the metaphor of mirror.
mhm. Yes.
Oh, I'm mirroring you. Oh, I'm reflecting you.
Mhm.
And that kills the dynamics.
What are you meaning by the dynamics?
Um, it is interesting that when dancers want to learn a form, they use the mirror. I want it right. But if they improvise, they close the curtain, they don't want a mirror. If you use the mirror and just describe the movement when you're in therapy, oh, your hand is making all these circles, the person will stop
Mhm,
instantly, most people. But the mirror also stops our interacting.
mhm,
Like what we are looking for is not the mirror, but the implicit
mhm,
person. All the implicit. I want Greg's answer and I
mhm.
don't want a mirror.
Well, what I'm getting when you're saying that is that the person, when they're moving their hand, they're improvising
Absolutely.
and they want that improvisation to be met somehow
Yes,
and
and
responded
support it.
to.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So
Mhm,
your hand is somehow tentatively being there with a very, usually I say back the intensity, the quality. Oh, it's so subtle what's coming.
mhm,
I'm
mhm.
not saying, oh, the hand is doing this and that. I'm saying
Yeah,
something very delicate is coming
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you can say the vitality, the intensity, and the quality, but don't please describe the shapes
Yes.
that may disrupt it.
I have, that's so interesting to me. I have always taught that it's often inhibiting to reflect back, oh, I'm noticing you're doing this with your hand or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like the person didn't realize it was just a natural improvisation of their being. They didn't realize that they were explicitly doing that until you pointed out, and then it
They
becomes
feel caught.
self-conscious. Yeah, exactly.
They feel caught.
Yeah,
If it wasn't conscious,
yeah,
they feel like, oh,
yeah,
you
yeah,
control me.
yeah, yeah. I revealed something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
So, so what I'm trying with this
mhm,
bodying process language is to develop a way of being with a
mhm,
gesture or a
mhm,
shoulder like
mhm,
this. It doesn't always have to be so explicit,
mhm,
expressive. Um, so that they feel we are in company with each other and I'm not checking you out.
What I get from that is that you're in company with where it's arising from in them more so than the outward observation of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's where I would say it's a specific skill.
Mhm.
And I think that we don't usually have in the classical focusing because is more about the words,
Mhm.
or there is this sensation and then you symbolize it, it carries forward, and you can say back a feeling tone or a sensing or a word or image more easily because a movement just disappears.
Mhm.
But very often the change starts in a slight movement that you aren't aware of, which may be so seemingly incongruent with what you are saying,
Mhm.
but that's where the change comes from.
It's
And that took a
interesting.
long time for me to, how can I be with somebody so they don't stop? What
Mhm.
would I need
Mhm.
from somebody, you know,
Mhm.
so I won't just control myself. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, like what kind of interaction would you have needed to live further in that relationship?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'm aware that you kind of went into the whole body focusing world and but what you're talking about now, and I think what you've developed from it is different in some ways. I'm wondering if
I
that's true.
I really want to honor the encounter with Kevin McAvenue.
Mm-hmm.
And he inspired me to call it something, what I was doing. I mean, he came from the Alexander technique
Yeah.
and had a way of describing it. And and then he and Karen Whalen collaborated in ways where I found I can't see what's grown in me going along with that. It feels different. It
Mm-hmm.
feels different.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very supportive actually of me finding ways the way I needed to do this. So I have no strange feeling about that.
Yeah.
I just noticed, yeah, it is a kind of focusing with the whole body. And there are these differences, like my training in somatic experiencing made a big difference that I had felt how self-regulation works and how self-regulation which I introduce into grounding into being here, this first process element, the way you ground yourself into being here. And again, I mean this Heidegger,
Mm-hmm.
um, me being in the world,
Mm-hmm.
being in the world. It's never just
Yeah.
me being here.
Yeah.
And having German as a native language, um, grounding, gründen in German has so many implications that is just in that little word, you know, it's never just grounding. So combining that with this second step, um, life living from itself, which is this self-propelling process, I needed to combine it so there is a self-regulation, but in many ways, like orienting in the room, orienting in nature,
Mm-hmm.
so that people get a sense of their existence in a different way. Sort of, I would say things like, how does it want to stand?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going through the body, but not like a body scan, but So how does he need to breathe right now? And there is no mistake, no. So how, or like, how is the room now after walking in the room? And so can you sense the spot that works best for you? And so that people slowly understand that their living body brings all that what they need to live. And sometimes there are these blockages or these stoppages, and then you can support people into going further. So I needed to explore all this in a very delicate way. And I find that when you take great care into those first steps, these grounding into being here, combined with this life living from itself, which is all the information from evolution we have, that's what we can do without even thinking about it. That is the living interaction first. When that is supported, we have a different way of developing a felt sense, which is the second level for me of life living from itself. Felt meaning is developed. But that is the human domain, and the human domain of where it's not only culture or tradition.
Hmm.
And but what I really think what Jean did so profoundly is saying it's this the same living interaction first on the organismic level, the body
Hmm.
level,
Hmm.
and it goes all the way up behavior, culture, and then meaning. And I find that I need that expansion into organismic interactions so that we can be here in a safe way. Or if we are not safe, we understand how we are not safe. And then you develop different focusing processes.
I'm trying to picture that. If you bring your awareness to this larger bodying, that from that beginning, the felt sensing that comes is somehow slightly different, maybe, than the six-step focusing.
I sometimes say it's it can be matched, and it has something to do with clearing space also.
Okay.
It is like, and Jean has this incredible quote, which he meant more for clearing space, but you could use it for grounding into being here with life living from itself, taking the body out of being the problem and taking the body so that it can stop controlling, having the controls of life, at least temporarily. One of those little Jean Gendlin sayings, which I love, at least temporarily, I know you can't do it forever. And taking you back to the source in which the body was made and maintained.
Mhm.
And it is such a deep description. And I was trying to say, well, you can cross it with clearing space. But beforehand, maybe this organismic being here can be helpful for people, and I think it is, who say, if I don't have my problems, who am I? And
Mhm.
people cling to a problem because that's a sense of identity.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to say, well, this organismic way of first just being, we are here and and simply allowing us to be here. And maybe there is a difficulty, no sense of belonging. So what does help? Yeah, when you are in a space and touch things that may help your sense of being here, or lean against the wall may help your sense of being here. So you individually explore
Mhm.
how can you feel that you're here?
Hmm.
For example, I couldn't feel my feet for a long time, but I could ground through my elbows.
Hmm.
And so any part of the body can help you to find your way into being more here.
Yeah.
And I find that so concrete. So it's not just a philosophical
Yeah.
entity or a concept,
Yeah, exactly.
but it's also philosophically valid.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I just I feel my heart's opening when things come together that way.
Yeah.
And 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 so and one person said this is the process before the process, because I invite people. So how does all that being here or I am here, what does that feel like?
Hmm.
And that is a kind of a felt sense. And if that can be here, let's say it's more expansive or there is more solidity now. And I really support them to treasure that, because when you go later into some
Hmm.
challenging stuff, and that's what I got from Peter Levine, you can pendulate.
Yeah.
And that can be a blessing, because you can sense, yeah, I'm here and I'm more than the issues.
Yeah. That first felt sense that you're describing, it it's sounds almost more like a felt sense of being alive or of being
Yeah,
here rather than a felt sense of a problem.
exactly. Yeah.
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 Can I ask? I want to.
Sure.
I can tell our time's going to go quickly. There's a few different things I wanted to ask you about,
Yeah.
but I want to jump to something that uh, feels like such a fundamental question. I'm really curious what you'd say about it, because some of the things you're saying, you seem to be pointing to a kind of, you used the word once, source, and the felt sense living from itself, moving from itself, carrying itself forward. I'm curious how you understand that. Um, I don't know what to call it, but I'll just call it aliveness. What, how do you understand that that comes through a person or a person can access when their awareness is present or whatever?
It's like now I sense a pulsing, there's the light, there's a slight tingling, and there is a sense of I'm not to say I'm comfortable with you. I feel well engaged with you.
Mhm.
Sort of, oh, what will you say? And there is
Mhm.
oh yeah, excitement could be the word.
Mhm.
It's an excitement, a
Mhm.
little vibrancy.
Mhm.
And then there can be a deeper level where there is a very subtle, oh, this is a big word, I must be careful. Sort of something like a little bit of an unconditional kind of joy, very
Mhm.
tender.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it has to become still. And that it leads me now to something. Jean and I were very much on about for years. What is meditation? What is focusing? And so what happened more and more is, yeah, there are so many qualities of meditation, and there are so different kinds of qualities of focusing. And it is an inquiry into the living. So at some point, it's not so relevant what you call it,
Hmm.
but more on a level of where focusing is a blessing for trauma work or for I can't make a decision or I have this issue with every partner, whatever. There it is a different kind of focusing. Whereas when it comes to these questions, the quality of focusing shifts.
Hmm.
And that I've found very fruitful for me personally also. Is that something towards the question you
Well,
had?
I'll try to ask the question again, but first I want to reflect back what I think, using the word reflect back, what I think what I think you're pointing to. The way that I would say that, if it's the same thing, is we can use this self-reflective process of focusing in many different ways. And one way is to reflect on my life experience and what's going right, what's going wrong, what needs attention,
Mm-hmm.
what's a blockage of some kind or a stop
Mm-hmm.
process, or, because I can feel it and it needs my
Mm-hmm.
attention. That's one kind of focusing.
Yeah.
And then there's something more like attending to the focusing process itself. It's like one step back and it's more expansive and it's more like a question like, what is this? What is this? And it's more like bringing this kind of open awareness to the experience of life itself, or of being alive, or what life feels like living itself, or something
In that direction.
in that direction. Yeah.
And it, it can become so still that I wouldn't dare to say what's meditation and what's focusing.
Hmm.
And that I really appreciate, or that's precious to me. That's
Hmm.
the better term.
Hmm.
And the journey with Jean, I really feel that was a blessing because I had a real crisis in the Buddhist and meditative regions. For many reasons. One reason was the misuse of power and hierarchy and mingling with authority in terms of spirituality. I know the meaning of life, blah blah. And I've also met wonderful people, so don't get me as if I'm that I don't. But also in how meditation was taught, I had more and more of a difficulty that didn't work for me. And I was so grateful. I traveled to visit Jean every year, several times sometimes. And we had these conversations. And then I was with Tony Pecker in Meditative Inquiry, and that was upstate New York as well. So I spent my holidays exploring because I needed to.
Hmm.
And there the rigor of the philosopher was very similar to the rigor of the Zen master. And even the questions were similar. That and that helped me to let go of certain meditative structures that didn't feel um, right for me, but also this power thing was. I
Hmm.
just felt like I just don't want to be in that place anymore. And at the same time, I could see for some people it was wonderful, and maybe I'm just a too critical person. I leave that aside. But Jean really supported me, and so for me, focusing with the whole body or focusing is an incredible insight, incredibly insightful bodily oriented therapy process,
Mhm.
but it is for me, more importantly, it is for the investigation what life is about. It is a
Yeah.
philosophical life practice.
Yes.
That is my major concern, especially as I'm aging.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And the more I'm reconnecting to, my father was a diabetic and life never was certain for me. It could stop any moment. So at that time, diabetes was not like it is today. And so really staying with that, when there's so much pain or I had problems, health problems, to really, stay with this stuff. And I'm so grateful that this exists. And I think that's why I want to keep working as long as I can, because I find it so meaningful.
So I want to just go back to my question, given what you've said, which feels completely in line with um, what you were saying previously. I want to ask again, so when you pay attention in that way, focusing almost as, if I could just call it this to make the distinction, focusing almost as a meditative kind of practice on what is life or what is it to be alive or something like that. What do you find? Oh no, not what do you find. What sense do you make of what you find?
I There was a major shift, and I have to keep going back to that. My Zen master asked me, where does it rain, inside or outside? I couldn't answer that question in the monastery for years. And then Stony Point, the first TAE, Gene and I walked, and he asked me suddenly, where is the grass green, inside or outside? And that rocked me. It was that a sense of non-division.
Hmm.
And that keeps happening.
Hmm.
So if you ask me that, that's where I am. That's where I come from. I usually don't say that actually. So
Hmm.
you made me say that.
Yeah, I remember you told me that story many, many years ago, and I'm really glad that you said that again because I don't think it is something you talk about a lot.
No,
But when you're in the state that that question points to, I'm curious if you have any kind of understanding of, so what is a person or what is life or
I find that question then disappears.
okay.
That that was such a surprise.
Hmm.
When that's happening, the question isn't here.
Hmm. When I'm in a state that I would describe the same way, the way that I would describe it, the very insufficient way that I would describe it, is, um, and this came up in a conversation with Russell Delman, that this is enough. It's like a moment where it's just like, this is enough. And it feels timeless. It feels
Yeah,
like there's no edge or boundary. There is no inside or outside. And it can just come upon me. It's not something I can conjure up.
exactly.
Yeah. When I have that experience, I at the same time, in the background, there's this little kind of ticker tape, that kind of um, lit up lights that go around Times Square. announcing things or something, there's a little ticker tape in the background that even while I'm in that experience, there still is that little message going around of like, what is this? What is this? And for me, there's something that keeps curious about, so what is life? Because it feels in that kind of a moment like I'm seamlessly there with it. It is me without all of the rubbish in the way. And I'm just so curious of, so what is this?
Did- You remember we were in this workshop together in the summer school,
Hmm.
and when I felt that timeless continuity, and suddenly it fell away. All right, there is a body dying or a body living, and there was this sense of timeless continuity. So it's more like um, taking time and making a lot of space so something like that can emerge, but I can't make that
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
And there are times when it can badly leave me. But and what I find very touching is that when I was a child, I must have known that
Hmm.
there was something like that
Yes.
that made me ask these questions, which I asked all my life. And
Mm.
I was only 6 or 7,
Yeah.
and there they were. And so I find that these questions are more of a gift than an achievement in my life. And sometimes they tormented me because I had to leave a lot of communities and belongingnesses
Hmm.
because I need to follow
Hmm.
through with
Hmm.
something. And that
Hmm.
was sometimes very painful.
That's interesting because I think part of what you're saying is you can't just be given the answer. And it makes me think again, and I've probably thought this many times and forgotten it, that it's actually asking the question which feels right. If I got an answer to that question, what is this? I don't think that would be nearly as good. I know you had a lot of contact with Jean. I'm wondering if there's anything you would want to say about what some of the most important moments or learnings or sharings or interactions you had together that kind of stick with you now.
I was deeply moved when being in his house. In the mornings, he had to have a complete non-contact, but he was just in this, that's where the papers arose. That's where he simply created these papers. And I could sense that were the times, I'm saying it now, that we was in touch with that source. And it was that I tiptoed through the room because there was this density of presence. And the only thing I might wave is whether he wanted a coffee, and I got a coffee and put it on the table and then would leave. I had a sense, yeah, that was a very special time where things really came in him. Let's
Mhm.
put it like that, emerged. And he could see that. And that stayed with me. And as a human being, this humbleness,
Mhm.
I mean, that taught me a lot too. I mean, like that he had no ambition to be a spiritual teacher. And he wanted that people wanted to support people, that they can ask the right questions and that they can stay and wait and allow it to come. That he felt that is his task. And I'm very grateful to that for him, because I feel that way I could support agnostics whose daughter was dying and she was accompanied by angels. And the mother said, "What do I do with angels? And I don't know, but I want to be close to my daughter." And so coming from this with Jean, from this, oh, so we have secular ways of describing something that can be immensely profound in meaning making, also in a spiritual sense. I I was so grateful, and that's the fruit of what I experienced with Jean Gentlin. I must say that, and so that's, and we tried out a couple of things also, like around pain.
Mm.
We experimented around pain, and then he gave me several rebukes, sort of when I skipped the process. You have been thinking now, you've not been with the experience, so stay with the experiencing now. He could be very, not as a therapist, but, we are going to find this out now. And so I was working with pain, and I understood working around the pain, and that it took so many layers to be in focusing with layers of pain, and what my fears around me, the condition of pain was, until I was able to face pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in a process, and it was therapeutic in a sense, but the way he
Mm-hmm.
was strict, he wouldn't have done that as a therapist.
Yeah.
That was the training, this don't skip the process. So what did you say? Where
Yeah.
does it come from? Go back. You've been thinking about something. No, no, no. You must go back to the experience. That was tough
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah.
At times, yeah. And he could see what I was trying to do with focusing with the whole body, and he was very supportive of that. I mean, and but that is not so specific. I think he was supportive a lot with people,
Mm-hmm.
who try to develop, their questions and go along with their own path. He was very generous with that. So that I wouldn't say that that was so special.
Yeah. Very generous.
Very generous,
Yeah.
very generous, and yeah, yeah. So what I still want to mention, and that I also love to work with structure-bound process, and that I put it into the training, and because that was another crossing from what I just said, this expanded understanding of the body and the theory of personality change, and of course the process model itself, but that where does the life process of a person stop? And that it may have to do with certain life tasks at times. Like you are born, in the first 3 months when you're born, you start embodying, and are you welcome in the world, and how are you received, and then when he said in TCP with theory of personality change, you must remember that before we had a sense of a self, there were other people who resonated with us, who were responsive with us. And that's how the self created itself in that interaction. So if there is a stoppage of some kind in that early stage, you may feel, oh, I'm always alone, or I'm not welcome in the world. And it may stay as a sense of what life is about, in you. And So understanding the different tasks coming with different life stages, like needs, what do I need, or autonomy. And so you can support a person into sensing where the stopping is, the stoppage is. And how can I be an environment that is different than the environment that was? And so I feel that is very focusing oriented. And I really would like to write that down more clearly because I think that really matters to me. That people don't turn away from focusing when it comes to certain issues because we don't have enough contents,
Mhm.
but use the actual focusing orientedness
Mhm.
to address this because you can be with that. There is this something in me feels so small, something in me feels so totally alone, it wants to kill itself. And I can be with that in a different way, and can it sense that we are being with it?
Mhm.
And that I would find if we could have that in the focusing world a lot. I'm
So,
sure other peoples have done things like that, similar,
mhm.
but I would like to write it more specifically.
Yeah, that sounds good. When you say find where the stoppage is, do you mean kind of begin to get a sense where the stoppage first occurred?
Actually, it doesn't matter
Hmm.
because very often there are reoccurrences. So if
Hmm.
you get the first one, if you get one,
Yeah.
that's an entry.
Hmm.
So if somebody has an issue with autonomy, it will keep coming up over an issue with I never get what I want. Um, so you don't even have to get the first one. And I simply and there again, I I sense the process. In what kind of environment did it make sense that this
Yeah.
person suddenly doesn't feel what they want anymore? So what happened there? Where did it make sense that you totally neutralize
Yeah.
what you ever wanted?
Yeah.
And that is the key. So when you can
Hmm.
be a different kind of environment
Hmm.
and process,
Yeah.
that may be helpful. So I'm not interested in the first time
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. But that is such a good question. I think that question you keep coming back to, that's really useful. Um, so this is what you refer to as structure bound process? Yeah.
Yeah, that's or like it can happen in later life. You see, in German they use the misnomer mobbing, which is bullying, I think in English.
Hmm.
Um, you know, when people are in bullying situations later in life, they can suddenly develop behavior which you would connect to other periods of life
Hmm.
where the stoppage might have been.
Hmm.
So I feel
Yeah.
it's important, and there Rogers and gentlemen are so far apart. What experiencing is still functioning, and that's where you go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you go.
Yeah.
You trust that, and
Hmm.
and I find that so helpful and offer relationship to that. Can it sense that we're being with it?
Hmm.
Okay. No, it doesn't want to sense that we are being with it. Yeah, that's interesting. Ah, okay.
Hmm.
So it can sense that it doesn't want to sense us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying that to trick the person and say, ah, but then it must have sense. No, no. I'm just taking it seriously
Hmm.
and it can go further. So I
Yeah.
find that very fruitful anyway.
That's interesting. That reminds me of times when it's like the felt sense is kind of like, get away, get away. It wants you to hear that it wants you to get away. It doesn't want you to actually go away.
Exactly. Yeah, it might tell you, stay away a long ways, and okay, you can be here. And if you give it time, allow that,
Hmm.
something may shift because you keep coming back and you don't intervene with anything, interfere.
Hmm.
And that might have been needed,
Yeah,
that there is somebody who's not intrusive and just being there.
exactly. Exactly. And the other thing you were saying sounds really important to me, that there can be a stoppage in one's implied development at some point,
Yeah,
and yet you go on living
yeah,
and you live around it. You somehow integrate that stoppage and you can find a way of living sometimes that's more or less okay.
yeah,
And then something else happens, and there's that stoppage again.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know that situation too, that if somebody comes and says, I had to do it all alone on all my life and there never was anybody,
Hmm.
I would not argue with that. And I would say, yeah, so that's what it felt like. And after really being with that thoroughly, I would also at some point, if it keeps coming up, say, and I don't know, something must have worked well enough that you can sit here and look at me and find the way to my office.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then something can happen. So,
Yeah.
but not in a sense of we're looking for the positive. That's not how I mean it.
No, exactly. I get that difference. Yeah.
More what kind of, what is still functioning? What's still alive?
Hmm. Hmm.
Can we be with that? And I find it is that relating, which doesn't just repeat.
Hmm. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And that is, sort of where I find this grounding into being here, life living for itself, from itself, important for the therapist. I
Hmm.
allow that in myself because then it can work for me without saying anything. It's being that way with another person,
Yeah.
and we are environment to each other. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's anything else that you're kind of passionate about or would like to mention.
Not just now. It may come later, and I drop you a line.
Okay. Okay.
If that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Enjoy the rest of this pre-Christmas afternoon.
Likewise. Very nice to connect with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.